All right. What is up, everybody? I am excited today. I got Jeremy with me. Jeremy reached out through the comments a few weeks back and wanted to get on the show. So he's got the honor of being my first ever guest. So I will let Jeremy take over, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Mark. Yeah, my name is Jeremy. My profile is Jeremy Sean for people that I've talked to in other podcasts and online and on YouTube. Yeah, no, I've just been big Bronco fan for 20 years. I've been big Bronco fan my whole life. But yeah, no, it's awesome that you are doing this and can reach out to different fans and see what they're thinking and kind of get temperature of other people. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. This is exactly what I was hoping to get out of the channel. To be honest with you, I didn't think it would happen so quickly. And guys, like realistically, the first time I ever saw Jeremy's face was 5 minutes ago when we got on here. So, but this is fun. This is kind of exactly what I wanted to get out of it, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver you guys an episode today that's going to be fun. To give you a little bit of a rundown, what we're going to do is we're going to do a mock draft. We're going to do alternating picks. Now, I thought about giving up the number 12 pick to Jeremy. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I made my decision. So I'm going to start off, and then that'll put Jeremy at 2. We're just going to alternate. That means you'll end up picking for the Broncos. But as we
Okay.
go, we'll give some different scenarios, and we'll just discuss kind of our thoughts on the quarterbacks. If the board falls a certain way, what we think would happen, and then we'll go from there. So how's that sound, man?
That's great. Yeah. And we can collab on 12 too. It's fine.
Yeah, no, yeah, well, no, it's all good. Well, I mean, we're gonna anyways. Well, I think we'll end up collabing on
Yeah.
on all picks, but you'll ultimately be the one that makes the selection. So we're not gonna do any trades. We'll just do like hypothetical scenarios, but we won't actually do any trades. And then
Gotcha.
what else? I think that's it. So
Yeah.
we'll get
Sounds good.
we'll get cracking. We're a week away, man. So I'm pumped up.
Oh man.
All right.
I'm too excited, I think.
Yeah, me too. I feel like next week's gonna be one of those slow weeks. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, I'll get us started here. We'll go ahead and we will begin this draft. I don't know if the settings are going to be slow or not, but all right. So obviously this is going to be the easiest pick of the draft. Bears are going to go with Caleb Williams. I'm personally back and forth on him. I think he's got high bust potential, but what do you think, man?
I mean, he's got the most talent. That's why he's going to go number one. I mean, as far as, I really don't like when people are like, their ceiling and their floor. It's like, how do you know? What was Tom Brady's ceiling? What was Drew Brees' ceiling?
Yeah.
Like, you had
Yeah.
no clue that they were going to be all time greats. You thought
Yep.
they would be maybe starters, maybe Breeze, maybe a good quarterback. No one ever thought that. So like that always drives me nuts. It's like if the person has an absolute like will to get better and just like is super competitive, they can there is no ceiling,
Yep.
It's crazy. So and it's a team
Yeah.
sport. So it's like you can't say like I think situation is so important. I think if Caleb Williams goes to Chicago, which is what's gonna happen, he has a tough challenge ahead of himself because Chicago is where good quarterbacks go to die. And
I know that's
like,
kind of been the thing around there. That's been the narrative.
yeah, I mean, look, Jay Cutler, I loved him when he was a Bronco for that short time, but he didn't have that obsession about football. And, he's going to have that. He's going to have to elevate his team. I, there's things about his personality that rub me the wrong way a little bit. I don't know him. I haven't been in the meetings, all that kind of stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
just projecting what I've seen. But I do think like he'll give up like something that's like wide open to try to do something miraculous. And you can't live like that in the NFL, especially when your team is not as talented.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the whole Bears narrative is legit, but they actually have a really good team and they got a lot of talent that they're putting around them. So I don't think that's going to be a big problem. But what I see is that organization has the potential to do a lot of turnover. This head coach might be on kind of a 1 year deal, and then there's a lot of things that like experts or all these like draft gurus will talk about Caleb Williams, but they'll just like brush by it like it's not a big deal, and it's like it kind of is. You know,
Like what kind
uh,
of stuff do you
like he's got a really big fumbling issue. It's been a huge concern.
total
Like he
30?
he
I
fumbled,
didn't realize 30 fumbles. That's crazy.
yeah, fumbles all the time. His like there's been like a lot of his completions or a lot of the games where he's had really good games. He's had like an exorbitant amount of time to throw. And the times where he's pressured up the middle or he's like facing pressure, he's not always all that good at it. And so I don't know, man. I mean, it's one of those things where I know coaches in the NFL always feel like they can change guys, but they'll have to coach a lot out of them. So we'll
Yeah,
see. It's gonna be fascinating. Go ahead.
he kind of feels like what Steph Curry did the NBA as far as younger kids who they just want to pull up from half court all the time now.
Yep.
Mahomes kind of did that for quarterbacks. It was like, oh well, there is no rules and it doesn't matter about your footwork, and you can just go and just launch anything and do whatever. And it's just like, what? You better be like unbelievable at it to pull that off. And
Yeah.
he seems to be, but
Yeah.
I
And
don't know.
Mahomes had Andy Reid, man. I mean, that guy's another level too. And I know he's had to learn to kind of live with certain things. So
Yeah, and it's more
yeah,
than just the talent around you. I think the organization, the ownership, all that kind of stuff, it really matters on how the locker room, how everything is. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's going to go number one, and it'll be fascinating because it's so hard for one player to go into an organization that's struggled for years and turn them around. It's just
yeah.
so difficult.
It's hard, but it ain't impossible. So and we
Yep.
saw it with Nikola Jokic here with the Nuggets. So we'll see. All right, man. Well, you're up with the number 2 pick. I think, number one, and I think the draft really starts at 3.
Yeah.
But who do you think the Washington Commanders go with?
Okay. This is. It seems like all the draft Nick people love Drake May, and they brought in Cliff Kingsbury, and they, it's. I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels at 2. So
I would agree.
that's who I'm going to go with at 2.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I think so too. I think the NFL kind of knows it because Minnesota made those trades, right, to get like 11 and 24 or 23, whatever
Yep.
it is to. And I think
23.
there's a lot of people talk about their target is to move up and to try to get Drake May at 3. So
Right.
I feel like that's kind of the 1-2
It's kind of
punch. And
known.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll see with Jane Daniels. I like the guy, but I think he's got a lot of downsides and flaws too. But I think, for as bad of a head coach, I think Cliff Kingsbury was. I think that's a good match for him. So we'll see.
Yeah. He's had that type of player before. They brought him in specifically. It seems like they made that decision a while back, and they were like, who would be the right fit to mold this person? And then they brought him in. And so, the thing with Jaden Daniels and people, there's Bronco fans that are like, oh, we get Jaden Daniels. And you're like, do you really see? I know he had like Taysom Hill, like Sean Payton, but do you really see Jaden Daniels fitting Sean Payton, what he wants to do, like his bread and butter? Like, to me, I listened to Drew Brees when he was interviewed, and he's like, timing and tempo are like the hallmarks of a Sean Payton offense.
Yep.
And Jaden Daniels is a drop back, if it's not their takeoff kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's not that big as far as he's not that thick. And
No.
he took some massive hits in college. And I know like everybody takes hits, whatever, but he took some really big hits, and the NFL is a different animal. And if you're known as a runner, they can hit you like a runner.
Mm-hmm.
If you're, they can't hit you in the pocket, but he won't be in the pocket. So I would be nervous about Jaden Daniels if for some reason the Broncos, craziness happened, but I just don't see him fitting the Broncos. So
no, I don't think so either. Yeah, I definitely don't think so. I think even. Oh, here, look, the little dog was making an appearance. Yeah, there you go. What's going on? This is after 2 picks. Oh, buddy, you gotta get up. All right.
The Spurs pickers.
Yeah, they're all crazy cute. But there's like I want to see the other doggo. All right. So here it is, New England, man. I'll tell you about New England.
Yeah.
I've for the longest time I thought no way they passed on quarterback, but I don't know. I feel like there's the buzz for the week leading up is the more legitimate. And I read some quotes about their pre-draft press conference today. I genuinely feel like with the new regime and kind of still wanting to have the New England way, but like a fresh look, they're kind of looking at their roster and like, man, they'd rather take a king's ransom and kind of take that long-term approach.
Yeah.
So I personally believe this ultimately ends up getting traded to Washington. If I had to predict, Obviously, yeah, Washington to Minnesota. I was like reading Washington. Yeah, it's Minnesota. Yep.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I could see that for sure.
I think that's the target. But if not, and that's still obviously a huge possibility, I think they obviously go with Drake May here.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
if
and
that's the
this
case, that can do a lot of things.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, I think they've heard a lot of noise around, just all over the NFL. Basically, like, you guys are not set up for a quarterback to like succeed right now. And I think that's kind of made them nervous too, a little bit, just because,
Yep.
you know, the coach isn't desperate to like, he hasn't coached yet. So there's no like clock on him and all that. It's not like,
Good point.
and he,
Good
he
point.
doesn't need to tie himself to a guy win or lose yet. So he
Yep.
can just go, and he's a defensive coach. We lived through that. We had, Vance Joseph and then Vic Fangio. And, a big part of the reason why, like, when Elway was trying to get quarterbacks, it seemed like, he's picking a random quarterback, and then he's like, all right, now you go do the offense stuff, and then the coach will do the defense. And it's like, no, you need the marriage of like
Yeah.
an offensive coach to be there and create a system, and to be able to be like, hey, bridge quarterback guy, go in and fix it. It's just like that wasn't a good plan.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point, like with the fact that he's definitely gonna have like a 3 to 5 year window. I can see them trading out of this pick
Yeah.
and then taking a quarterback either later in the first or later on to develop.
Yeah.
100%. I think it kind of makes sense for him. But I will say Drake May, that's my guy. Like I haven't really gotten to the point where I think the Broncos even have a chance at him. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
But I
Sell me on
really love
Drake
his
May.
game, man.
Okay, sell me on Drake May because I'm lower on Drake May.
Yeah, I get it. I understand why. And I think for me, I always look at quarterbacks and I think to myself, all right, first of all, obviously you want to see the guy with like immense talent, right? So he's got all the talent in the world. He's got an absolute cannon of an arm. He's very athletic and he's got the good size. But what I liked about Drake May is he's somebody that, yeah, he's had those crazy just like screw it throws where he just throw the ball out or he might panic a little bit
Left.
under pressure. But I really like quarterbacks that come from systems where you don't have the most talent around you. You might not have had the best O line. I mean, and you're still going up against some pretty decent competition. He got a new offensive coordinator every year, but the dude just continued to progress and get better. And he kind of, I mean, he like I said, you always talk about high ceiling and potential is always what gets people killed. And he's one of those
Mhm.
guys that's got an immense amount of potential. And I think he's got a pretty low ceiling too. But I feel like somebody like him with a guru like Sean Payton, and I'm talking about specifically for the Broncos,
Okay,
I
yeah.
think he can get a lot out of him, man. And then Drake May has the ability to kind of add another element. But I like the size there. I like the fact that he's young. And I just don't see anything that he can't do that JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix or I mean even Jaden Daniels can. I feel like he can do it all. He just has a
Mhm.
little bit more, needing to hone in, and he's got a maturity about him. I really started to like him after I kind of listened to him talk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thing. But my track record, Jeremy, on quarterbacks is awful. I will tell you
Okay.
that. I will preface by
Yeah.
saying that. There's been some
Yeah.
guys that have been right on, but I've been wrong on a lot too.
I mean, it's hard though, because it's like you can't pick the situation, and I think situation is like so important. So it's impossible to be like, oh, I was 100% right, or I was 100%, or I was totally wrong, because it just depends, you
Yeah,
know. Um,
it does.
the thing with Drake May that scares me is, yeah, he's big, and I like the size, and he's athletic, but he's not like Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix as far as running ability. He's fast once he gets hauling, but he's not like, he's a little bit of like a baby giraffe when he runs. He's just like chugging, but then it's like a little, it's not like cutting and this and that, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
to me, it's that his delivery is the thing that like really makes me nervous. He's kind of really loopy with his throwing, which is like shown a lot of like inaccuracies on like easy stuff. The thing I like about him is he has a mind to see stuff deep. He looks deep a lot,
Mhm.
and he's when stuff is just coming open, he can just oh, I'm going to hit that. And then he just throws it and then it's there. And you go, oh my gosh, that was amazing. No one even saw that coming. And that's like the big plays. But it's like the thing that makes me nervous for Sean Payton, and maybe like you're right, Sean Payton can coach this up on him, but it's the consistent short to intermediate stuff that like has to be like on time every single time is like, I haven't seen that yet. He holds the ball a long time. That could be a bad habit that he's learned from like, being on a bad team and all that kind of stuff. Those things, like, that's why when like Zach Wilson goes to the Jets and everyone's like, oh, he's horrible. It's like, well, he went to the Jets and they, you know, they'll wreck your confidence. You'll see ghosts, all that stuff. Sam Darnold, all those guys, because they'll get into bad habits. And so Drake May goes to New England. I'm worried for him because
I agree.
He has all the talent in the world, but
I think he'd have to sit a year. And who did they sign Brissett? Is that where Jacoby Brissett ended up going? Did he go back there?
That is right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and that would buy him time. Yeah, and that would be it would ultimately, if they played it right. But yeah, just like you said, I mean, what I like the fact that he holds the ball, a part of me kind of likes it because he has the ability to run, but he doesn't look to run. Right. But a lot of the times, like when you're in an offense where the play caller has the ability to, call guys open, and you just saying, look here, if it's not open, you look there, and you got a little bit more of a structure. I think that there's a lot of growth. So yeah, I would like Drake May, but like I said, it's too much of a pipe dream because even if he doesn't go to New England, or even if, somebody trades up with New England, I don't think it's going to be Denver.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota, if they want him, they have more ammo than we do.
And I think Minnesota would be a good fit.
Unless you factor in the PS2 conversation, which that would personally make me sick to lose PS2. But if that was the thing that tipped it, like New England was like, well, Minnesota, that's great. You can give us picks, but you can't give us PS2. So we're going with Denver. Maybe you can come up with
I would do it. I would do personally, I would do that in a heartbeat. If you've been listening to any of my other channels, I mean, if you love a guy, and there's obviously that's the big if, right? And obviously if they did, but like if it came down to PS2 getting traded, and that would be the difference, I mean, I would do it, especially if that meant saving another future first round pick. But I mean, would it be easy? No, but that's kind of the Joker card that you have. So it'd have to be the right situation, obviously.
Right. Yeah. And if, it always hinges back on like, if Sean Payton, if he's in love with him, then it's worth it. And yeah, I agree. Like we go as far as Sean Payton and a quarterback go.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line, 100%. I just think that other people could you could keep PS2 and then still be successful with a couple other quarterbacks, then that swing personally. But if I'm not picking, and if Sean Payton is like, this is the guy and we can get him and I think it's worth it, and they do it, I will talk myself into it. No problem.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to be one of those situations where it's like, if New England is more intrigued by, like, let's say trading back from 3 to 12, and then we also give you PS2, but then we don't have to give you anything in the future, for example, because they see like a known commodity as being more valuable than like a future one or two future ones, especially because they don't know where we're going to be picking. And then maybe we could throw like a couple mid rounds or whatever. If it was like that, I would do it. But if it's like you're going to give up next year's first and you're going to swap this year, it wouldn't make sense.
I think to me, to get to 3, it would start at next year's first, PS2, and then something.
Yeah.
It wouldn't,
I know, which is weird because like if you just traded PS2 flat out, it would be for a 1, right?
Right.
So obviously, 3 is different, but you're still giving them 12. So it's like you're swapping 3 for 12, but instead of getting a future 1 where you don't know where that's going to be at, you're getting PS2. So I always get really, I always just get confused by that. But I mean, I agree. I think it would ultimately take a lot more than that. So
and I mean, you could also say, if you're New England, like, we think Denver's pick is going to be a lot closer to number 1 than Minnesota's would be. So if they were doing a future one, then maybe that's more enticing because, if they look at our roster and what Vegas thinks of our team right now, like we're slated to win like 5 games. So that could help you, move up too. But that would scare me because it's like, I don't want to give up. I mean, if you're swinging for Drake May, then the number 1 next year, it will be high, but you do have a quarterback.
So here's my question. Like, let's say let's say Minnesota trades up with New England. What do you think that looks like?
Probably 11, 23, and maybe another first next year, maybe.
Yeah. So
So that'd be three firsts
basically
for
3 ones. Yeah.
yeah, three.
And if that's the asking price and you're New England, would you rather take 12 and PS2 over 11, 23, and maybe so I guess if you
Yeah,
if it was going to be 11, 23 in a future one, then we could say, would you rather, if you're New England, would you rather take 11 PS2 in a future one?
right.
I feel
And
like
11 and 12 are
yeah,
basically the same. So that's negate. It's basically the same. So you basically are saying PS2 is PS2 worth 23 in next year's Minnesota's first? And I would
yeah,
say yes.
yeah.
I would say yes.
I mean, and you
So
could even make the argument. You can even say instead of us giving you a one, we'll give you a two or a three next year. But that I mean, it really like I said, there's just so many factors and why it's fun. But we could be here till midnight talking about it. So,
yeah, for sure.
um, and man, I think we'll end up probably doing another ep maybe tomorrow in the next couple of days too, because
Yep.
just to really get through all this. But
All
all
right. So
right,
we can now
Mrs.
that we both
Yeah,
quarterbacks are gone.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So cool. So I was one and I was three. Oh yeah, so you're on the clock, man. And this is really like realistically, this is where the draft really starts. So
Yeah. Again, I think if Minnesota doesn't trade up, and let's say New England does want Drake May, I would say Minnesota's trading up to maybe 4 to get JJ McCarthy. Probably.
mhm,
That's what the buzz is.
yeah,
In this scenario where we're sticking and picking for all these people, I would say Arizona picks probably Marvin Harrison.
yeah, I would agree. And yeah, just like you had said, I think that giving them like, well, here's the thing too. Let's say Minnesota loves like really, really loves Drake May, but then they like some other guys later. I
Yeah.
don't think that like if they're not high on JJ McCarthy, they might not necessarily feel like they need to move. And if that doesn't happen, like if right now it goes exactly like this and Minnesota doesn't trade up, then that could be really good for the Broncos if they do like JJ McCarthy, because then it's like you can kind of wait it out,
Yeah.
and we'll see what the Giants end up doing.
Yeah.
And
I know.
and
If Minnesota gets taken off the board at 3, if they move up to 3 to get Drake May, then JJ is now like in flux. It's like who else is going to trade up? And
yeah,
according to Daniel Jeremiah, like yesterday, he thinks that it's only Minnesota and Denver who are really in on JJ McCarthy. And if Minnesota gets taken out, and if that's true, it's lying season, so who knows if that's true.
mhm,
But yeah, then the Broncos are in much better position. And then Adam Schefter also said JJ McCarthy's range is more 8 to 12 than 1 through 4 or whatever. So if that's true, like, and that makes more sense. I like JJ McCarthy when I thought he'd be available at 12, but when they're like, okay, to get JJ McCarthy, now you have to trade up 2 first. And I'm like, no, no.
yeah,
Like, personally, that's way too much for me. I like him, but like, he's never been the man on his own team. Like, he was never like the driver of his own team. And I know he's only lost 1 game, and I know all this stuff, but it's like there's such a different pressure as an athlete to be like, this is on you day in and day out than it is like, hey, we need you to come up clutch a few plays during this game than it is to be like, we need you to like drive the whole thing. It's like basically like, if I can make an analogy to like the Miami Heat in the early 2000s, there's way different being Ray Allen, who needs to make a clutch 3, than there is to being LeBron, you know. And JJ hasn't had to be LeBron. JJ had need to be Ray Allen. So, and he's done it. So like I like him, and he seems to be like really good, but it's just, yeah, I think he would need to sit a year or 2
yeah,
personally.
yeah.
Um,
In an ideal scenario, but you're taking at 4 or somebody's trading up to get you. That's not going to happen.
right, and that's gonna hurt
Yeah,
him, because he's super young. I don't love the fact that all of his balls are kind of line drives. He doesn't seem to have like as good of touch on balls. He doesn't seem to throw from different angles as much. He's just more of like, he steps into every throw and throws it really hard. And I'm glad you have that, and I'm glad you can throw it really hard, but like, you can't just live like that either.
no. And I do love the Harbaugh connection. I do. I also recognize the fact that he had a very dominant team. And I do like the fact that he's fine winning in any way, shape, or form. Like a lot of his tendencies and a lot of like the things you see, you're like, it would make a lot of sense for Sean Payton or maybe a lot of teams.
Yeah.
But just like you said, are you going to make an aggressive move to trade up and get him or spend a very, very high priority pick on him if the ideal scenario for him is to sit a year? Kind of becomes tough. So, yeah, I agree, man. We'll see. So this is really when the draft starts to get interesting. I think with the Chargers, definitely a trade back candidate as well. And that's the crazy thing. Like I feel like there's so many teams that would be down to move back because
I
of that
agree.
quarterback rush. But ultimately, I don't think that they do. And I think that knowing Harbaugh, the way he builds his team, the way he wants to kind of be that bully of a squad and help
Mhm.
out his quarterback, I think he probably goes O-line here.
I agree.
And I think Joe Alt is probably the best tackle, I think, in most cases. So I will
I think,
take.
yeah,
Oh,
I think that he would like to trade back and get somebody like Chase Latham because he's so big and like powerful, and he just loves those type of guys.
mhm.
So I loved how he was just like, oh yeah, no, JJ should be the first quarterback off the board. He's the best one in this draft. It's like, oh, okay. Well, if you honestly think he's better than Caleb Williams as a prospect, then I'm sure you will take him at 5, and then you will trade a ransom for Justin Herbert,
Well,
right?
somebody was talking about that. I
I
saw that
mean,
somewhere. I was like, that would be wild. I think it was on Orange and Blue. That would be wild, and not out of the realm of possibility either.
yeah, no, I mean, but that would be like, oh, if you really thought that, I think you would do that, you know.
Yeah,
But I think he went to the Chargers because of Justin Herbert. You know,
yeah,
I don't think he's doing that. But
yeah. I
if he
think so
did
too.
do it, if he really did love him that much, and he did do that, he could get a haul for Justin Herbert, and then he'd really be in good shape.
He would shake. Yeah, he would shake the draft, man. That would be wild.
Yeah.
Um, and if they traded him, they'd still owe him a bunch of money. Yeah, there's a lot of things that wouldn't make sense unless you kind of work something out. I think Brock Bowers is somebody that would make sense there too, but
Yep.
I think they go O line. So it gets interesting with the Giants. What do you think they do? You think they go quarterback here?
Man, did you see that? Did you see that Daniel Jones press conference where he pulled the Adam Gay size out? Did you see that?
No.
Where you So you
Oh,
remember
really?
that? Remember that? Remember that press conference where Adam Gase was completely
Look cracked out. Yeah.
yeah, cracked on Adderall or whatever. Daniel Jones did the exact same thing. So I mean, I man, that they're the hardest ones to figure out because for the longest time I didn't factor them into the quarterback thing,
Mhm.
but now I'm like, oh man, that could be real. Dang, I wouldn't feel that confident if I, was the Giants with just Daniel Jones coming off an injury, but yeah, that's the one. Uh, I'm gonna say they don't draft a quarterback. I think that you know that's a pretty wild thing to do if you're like the Giants organization to like kind of let your fan base, you know, think about all this all the time, and then you don't do it. That's almost
Yeah.
like you're setting yourself up to get like booed. But I'm gonna go. I'll go Malik Neighbors for the Giants.
I think it's a hell of a pick. I think arguably you can look at the Giants offensive roster and make a claim that it might be the worst in terms of talent
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
skill positions. So
But
any
Daniel
quarterback you're
Jones,
bringing in there is going to get killed.
right? And so you can easily talk yourself into the fact of Daniel Jones. We like him. We like him as a person. He can distribute the ball. All those things. We just need weapons. And I mean, Neighbors might be the best weapon in the draft, even over Marvin Harrison,
Oh
because
yeah.
Marvin Harrison doesn't have the explosiveness that Malik Neighbors does.
Oh,
Malik Neighbors,
Malik Neighbors is so good.
he's
And so
crazy.
yeah, just like you said, that might be the case. And they could also be looking at the roster and say, "Shit, man, let's try to see if we can get a haul," because that's still a premium spot. There's so many factors. I think is what makes this draft so fascinating. Is there's so many different factors that would like completely shift, um,
Yeah,
where somebody's picking, right? Like there's some things that can happen here. Like if it fell just like this, and
yeah,
there wasn't 4 quarterbacks in the top 4 or whatever,
right.
now the Giants could be getting some crazy offers that they might not be able to pass up. So I like
That's true.
Malik Neighbors there. I think it makes sense. I think you could always they could always, go back and get somebody later, and maybe Dayball will be able to develop him. Also with Dayball, he might be one of those situations too, right? Where he's like, you don't win this year, he's out. And does he
Mhm.
want to put all of his chips in the basket for a rookie quarterback? So at least he could have an excuse, if Daniel Jones doesn't play well or whatever. So
And you
yeah,
become a target of a place of, you could if you went like, if you didn't go to the draft to get a quarterback, you could sell like a free agent quarterback. Like, we have Malik Neighbors, we have it's New York, all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
I think the fans won't go crazy. I mean, they won't be disappointed if you land Malik
Yeah.
Neighbors. So.
I know a couple Giants fans, they're like really emotional Giants fans, and they would probably lose their mind. But if they really take a step back and look at it, it kind of makes sense. And if people don't think that NFL GMs think like this, I'm telling you, I feel like they do. Is the GM could be looking at Brian Daboll and be saying, we might not have him next year, right? There's a possibility, regardless of if they take a quarterback or not. So do you really want your head coach choosing a quarterback, and then all of a sudden after 1 year the head coach is gone? Now you have to hire somebody new, and he might not want him, and then
Right.
it's like you're almost starting over again. So it's like it's kind of one of those things, like, see how it plays out. If Dayball ends up losing, then they can hire a coach and then have the coach handpick their next quarterback and build that way. It happens so many times in the NFL, like in the NFL with the draft specifically, where it's like you had an organization take a guy, and then all of a sudden they fire the coach, and now does a new coach want this guy? And there's always the speculation. It just becomes a mess. So
And they
there's a
don't
lot of that.
a lot of offensive guys like that who have a whole system to implement, they don't like rookie quarterbacks.
Mm-mm.
They do not want to be like, oh, I have to now teach this whole thing. I got to waste a whole year probably in this whole process.
Yeah,
You
especially if they're
can,
on the
like,
hot seat, right?
if they're on the hot seat, you can extend
Especially.
it out and then go, oh, maybe next year, it doesn't happen. But like, yeah, if you're in the hot seat and you're like, you got to put up or shut up this year, and you're going to go into a rookie quarterback, that's bad
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah. No, I agree. So I like Malik Neighbors. I think that that's legit, and I think that that could certainly be something that they end up doing. So
Yeah.
I dig that pick. The Titans, man, the Titans, they could use a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously wide receiver, obviously O line. Who's their coach there now? Who they hire? Shit, I forget.
Uh, who is the Titans? That's a good question.
Because they ended up getting rid of their coach, right?
Let me look.
Oh, it's the guy from
Oh,
Bill
is it the?
Callahan's son, right?
Oh, okay.
Callahan from the Bengals. Didn't he go there?
Let me see.
I'm pretty sure that's
Uh,
what it was.
Screaming at the stream right now. It is. Yeah, you're right. Brian Callahan.
Brian Callahan. Yep.
And the picture is him in a Broncos polo shirt. So
Oh
that's good.
yeah. Yeah, former assistant here. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think they like Will Levis there. Obviously they're not going to go quarterback. I think that they're going to look at it and say, "Hey, we could do either skill position around him,
Yeah.
or we could build the O line." I ultimately think they probably go with an O lineman, but man, Roma
Yeah.
Dunze, Brock Bowers, any of those guys would make a lot of sense. They'd make a lot of sense there. That would be fun. But
Yeah.
I think they're going to go with an O lineman. I don't know too much about the linemen's here. I feel like
Mhm.
I know some, like, everybody's kind of up and down about him. I'll go with Fuaga, but
Yeah.
it could be any of these guys. I think they ultimately go.
Yeah. They always all these teams always have, like, their own flavor of what they look for in a lineman, and it's just like it's hard to
Yeah,
know that.
it's hard to know, and it's one of those things, man, where it's never a sexy pick when your team like takes a tackle, but
Right.
it usually is always a damn good pick. It's just hard to like get pumped up for it,
You're not excited about a draft night and the day after, but then, like, for the next years, if you don't do it, people are like, "How the heck did you not take a tackle?" Da, 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 so they get mad if you don't have one, but
Yeah,
they don't get excited if you do it. So
yeah, exactly.
that's what
I kind of call it. I heard this phrase before in golf, but you could use it for this too. I kind of call it like a condom pick, because it's a safe pick, but it doesn't always feel good when you have it.
but you're glad you had it. You're glad you put it on.
You're glad you had it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that. All right, what you got with Atlanta?
Atlanta. Okay, so one of the pods I watch a lot to support is through one of the MH guys. He does an Atlanta Falcons podcast. So I've been watching a lot of Atlanta stuff. I know way more about the Falcons than I ever thought I would.
Oh yeah, it's
Uh,
Scotty, right?
yeah,
Scott?
it's Scott. Yep.
Yeah.
So he would, it's to me it comes down to either Rome Odunze or Dallas Turner. To me, I mean, maybe they like Jared Verse or another pass rusher, but like they don't have any pass rushers. Like they have zero pass rushers. So, um, you can't go wrong with either one of those guys.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna go.
think I think Edge makes a lot of sense there for him.
I'm gonna go. I'll go Dallas Turner. I think that's the one he leans at. But like again, Rome Odunze's sitting there staring at you, and you're like, oh man, that would be a nice weapon to have with Kirk Cousins. And I mean, the only thing I wouldn't go with Rome is because they've already invested heavily in the skill positions on offense with Kyle Pitts
Yeah.
and with Drake London. So
And Bijan in the back too, yeah.
yeah, so I'll go Dallas Turner.
Yep. I think that's a good pick. But I think that there's a lot that can happen there.
Yeah,
And I think those two picks, I think 8 and 9. So if the draft falls like this, Denver's ringing. They're calling to move up. And I'm telling you, I've always said it, like they should move up to these spots, even if Bo Nix is the guy that they like. Ensure that you get him. Show that commitment. I think it's so important to do that. And moving up a few spots like that's not gonna cost you a whole lot. And those teams might be willing to move back, especially Chicago here at 9. But
people were saying that to move up to 8 at Atlanta, you would still have to give up an additional first round.
really, yeah, I think that's crazy. I don't think so. I think
I
especially
wouldn't do that. Like if that's the
no,
case,
hell no,
I wouldn't
hell
do
no,
that.
no, hell no.
Yeah,
Um, but well, like I said, if you love JJ, right, and then you're
yeah.
happy that he fell to here, and you're ultimately just giving up a future one. I mean, it ends up being better than moving up to 4. But I don't know about that because if you're the only team really seriously calling the Falcons and making an offer, like you've kind of got all the leverage. I think that'll happen if you have like 4 or 5 teams in the mix. But
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah, that
If
seems
this was
asinine.
the scenario that was going on, Minnesota hasn't got their guy yet. And so
Mhm.
if you like JJ McCarthy and Minnesota's like, we'll give you a second, and then Atlanta's like, well, Minnesota's going to give us a second and 11, will you give us a first, Denver, to then what, then you're in the scenario of like, if you really
Yeah,
love JJ McCarthy.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it. And my whole logic with that would be if you really love JJ McCarthy that much, you would have made the call way before.
Okay,
I think.
that makes
But like I said, I mean, if it ultimately felt like that and you really do love him, I think you do it. I don't think
yeah.
you leave any stone unturned when it comes to getting your quarterback. So
It's just interesting. People are always like, oh, if you love this guy, you're like, but it's like, what if you like feel really, really, really good about JJ and Bo Nix? Like you
exactly,
feel,
exactly.
then you're kind of like, let me go as far back as I can, or just wait it out, and then maybe I don't have to give up anything, and I still get one of the two, you
Yeah.
know.
And that's the thing we'll
So
never know. That's why the draft is so much like show me what you do rather than what you say. Because like that could
yeah,
be the case, right? And
right,
then the Broncos could ultimately trade back and take Bo Nix, and they can come out and say, "Oh, we love Bo Nix. He was our second ranked quarterback, or we loved him and we had him ahead of JJ." Nobody would believe him, right? But like
right.
that
It
could
would
be
be
the truth. But a lot of people would be like, "I don't believe that." So it's like you don't really know.
yeah.
That's kind of the trippy thing too.
And all of this is just opinions. There's no tangible like this guy is better than this guy. Like that's just opinions,
Yeah.
and it's so all we do is hear of opinions for months and months and months on this is the consensus. This is the consensus, and it drives me nuts because it's like the consensus is right about the players that work out, and the consensus is wrong about the players that don't. They're
Yeah.
all in the same though. So it's just like you guys like tons and tons of draft people were wrong about you know,
Mhm.
whoever, Zach Wilson or whoever it was.
I mean, the consensus last year really everywhere I looked was Bryce Young over CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
And now a lot of people look stupid, but they kind of want to, but who knows? So, and like I said, I think fit is everything, man.
I agree.
Like the the consensus might have Bo Nix at 5 or 6, but for Sean Payton, you can make the argument that he's 2 or 3
I
easily.
think he's 2. I think personally, people who I know that like I watched all these guys for like a couple months ago just because I wanted to do my own due diligence. And to me, Bo Nix is the perfect fit for Sean Payton. I
agree. I agree. And a lot of really smart people say that too, right? I mean, a lot of guys that watch a lot of college, like Joel Klatt's one of my favorites, and he talks about that as a perfect fit. And so that's the thing. But like, then again, I mean, moving up always, I feel like it always just leaves a better taste in everybody's mouth, right? If ultimately he is Sean Payton's number 2 quarterback, but he trades back, you're not going to believe him. And it's like, what's the buy-in? But even if like you traded up to 10 or a little bit, you know, just to make that move. I mean, I feel like that goes a long way. But
I totally agree. The problem with this year is everybody thinks Bo Nix. Well, not everybody, but like there's a lot of people that think Bo Nix is like a fringe first round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
So even 12 people would be like, you reached, when it's like, no, he didn't at all. You're lucky that this was such a good draft year. I honestly think like compared to the year the Steelers were the first, they took what's the guy with the small hands who they traded when they
Pickett.
Oh yeah, Kenny Pickett. Like if Bo Nix would have been in the year Kenny Pickett, he would have been QB1.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
easily.
Like, you can say like, oh, Bo Nix is this fringe guy, whatever. And it's like, yeah, you just think that because it's like, oh, you're gonna really trade up for the 5th best quarterback in the draft. It's like, well, first of all, you don't know. That's an opinion. And second of all, like the 5th best in this year is like maybe the 1st in another year. Who knows? So
yeah, I agree, man. I agree. I think it's going to be fascinating. And I think the Broncos might be in those situations where maybe they start to make calls, but maybe not. And then at 12, they might be a situation where like nobody really wants their thing. You know,
I agree with that too. I think it'll be someone, maybe, you know, they make it, everybody's like, oh, just trade back to 20, trade back to 19. It's like, well, you have to actually need the team at 20 to do that. You can't just do that.
Yeah.
This isn't mock simulators where you're like, who has 20? Okay, I'm going to just force this trade or whatever, you know, it's like, they're not going to do that.
Yeah. Which is why as we get closer to the Broncos pick, I think it gets fascinating because we could talk about that. And then what I think we'll end up doing is we'll stop at the Broncos pick and then we'll get back and do another one with the reverse and then talk about it that way. And then I think we have 2 episodes and we can kind of get 2 different perspectives and kind of switch it up in the second one. Does that sound cool to you?
That's it.
Okay,
that's great.
Cool. And then, all right, perfect. So what is this your pick? It's your pick, right?
No, you're
my pick. All right, I'm up with Chicago. This one's tough because they can go in a lot of ways. And I'm not going to lie. I really do want to give them Brock Bowers because I feel like it would be that would be pretty damn potent offense. Like they'd have 2 really good tight ends. You know, they have Keenan Allen now. They obviously got DJ Moore. So they'd have some weapons. But I think the smart move to do is to protect Caleb Williams. I don't really know how Chicago's O-line, if I remember, is actually not very good.
Right. I agree.
And so I think I'm going to go with Fashanu.
Yep.
Here. But it would be enticing for them to really double up on giving him another weapon, but I think Fashanu is probably the smart move.
I agree. Sorry, just side tangent here, but do you ever notice like how certain draft people always like will mispronounce people's names, and it's such a pet peeve of mine that it's like everybody's been calling him Fashanu, and then you'll hear somebody go Fashanu, or you're like, wait, what? Where did that come? Where everybody's been saying this one way. I don't know why that always happens, but it's just funny.
Yeah, it was like Kevin Harlan. Remember, like the Okubuenum or something? He like and Kevin Harlan is usually really good. Okubunum, I'm like, man, you're not even close.
Right, and it's like this is what you do for a living. Like all I would do is I'd look through the roster and go, oh, that name's crazy. How do you go to the
Patrick, and he was like, he called him Okue. He called him Okue Bunum, is what he said.
Okue Bunum, yep. And everybody in the Denver thing is like pulling their hair out, like it's Okue Bunum, dude. Like it's not that hard.
Yeah, it's Okue Bunum. Like not that difficult, brother. But yeah, anyways. So yeah, I think Fashanu makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
There are
I
just the
agree.
tackle in general. You got to protect your investment, right? So
Totally. I mean, yeah, I get, man, there would be some upset people that you didn't pick Roma Dunze as well, but a quarterback on his back is useless. So,
exactly.
you
And
know,
I think they have enough. Like I said, I think they have enough weapons
they have
where they need to
improved.
focus on being able to protect them now for sure,
Yeah.
no doubt. And there's other guys. There's a lot of receivers you can get in this draft too, man.
Oh, this receiver class is crazy.
It's
So
that.
I agree. Yeah.
All right, who
All
do you
right.
got
So
with the Jets?
Jets at 10. I mean, they're going offensive line. I mean, they had Aaron Rodgers for 5 seconds last year until he got hurt because he got hit. So yeah, I mean, they're pushed all their chips in the middle for Aaron Rodgers to be successful this year. If they don't pick an offensive lineman and he gets hurt again, like what, like people will go nuts. So yeah, it's offensive lineman. Who, let's see, who's on the board still? I'm trying to follow along here. So let's say offensive tackle.
Do you see
Um,
the screen or no?
yeah.
Oh,
So I have it on mine too. So okay,
oh, cool.
so Fontenot or JC Latham or Mims or Guyton. Okay. Let's go Fontenot. That makes sense to me.
I dig it, man. I feel like Brock Bowers is gonna go there. I don't know why, but
I can see it.
that's the smart move. That would be the smart move is to take
Well,
the tackle.
so the pushback on Brock Bowers in the top 10 is premium position. Like tight ends aren't premium position. You're basically guaranteeing that you're paying top tight end money before he's ever even played. Because
Yeah,
like the top tight ends aren't paid as nearly as much as like wide receivers and all that. And
very
so
true.
you're not getting any benefit from the cost control if you do that. But I mean, there's Brock Bowers and then there's everybody else when it comes to tight end in this class. So
Yeah,
if
but
you love
then
Brock
again,
Bowers,
you never know, but you never know. But yeah, I mean, you make a good point with that. But also, you look at all the teams in the past 10 years that have won Super Bowls, and like 70 or 80% of them have an elite tight end, or at least the guys that have made it there. Like those really, really good next level offenses, I feel like they typically always have a really dominant tight end. But it
they
doesn't mean
do.
you need to take them at 12, right?
But that would be the pushback is of all those dominant tight ends that there have been, how many were like top 10 picks? Like none of them.
None of
They've
them.
all been
Yeah.
like
And
second,
the
third
ones
round.
that were kind of flopped. I mean, Kyle Pitts hasn't really done anything so far. So far, I mean, there's a lot of factors with that, but make a
Right.
good point.
Like Kyle Pitts did not like move the needle for the Falcons. I mean, now that they have their quarterback, he might, but
Yeah,
he couldn't do it alone. But they already got their quarterback. So I mean, yeah, I could see it for sure, but there are some like negatives to drafting a tight end in the
yeah.
early. Um, but I mean, like I said, like last year had a lot more tight ends like in like the second and third rounds. This one there's like Brock Bowers and then a couple like maybe one more tight end in like the top 75 and then there's people. So there's a huge fall off after Brock Bowers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
true. It's true. I think Sam Laporta last year too is like third round pick. He came in and just balled out, but it's rare, right? So
yep.
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like it's always intriguing to be like, yeah, give me that dominant tight end, but it's like, is it smart? Is it smart? So I like that. I like that for the Jets. I think that makes sense.
Yep.
Minnesota at 11. Obviously, I think we both agree they probably won't really be picking there. And to make this realistic, I do think they're going to jump up and get a quarterback, even if they stayed here at 11 and everything happened the way that it would.
Yeah.
I think they go quarterback, and obviously, I think that's going to be JJ McCarthy. So
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Minnesota is like it's Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell came from a Sean McVay system, which is a Mike Shanahan system. They want the guy who can deliver the ball quickly and accurately. And so I think they would be, if let's say New England picks JJ McCarthy and then they don't love Drake May or whatever, let's just say we don't know their board. I could see them liking Bo Nix as well because they are this type of coaching that we are similarly.
mhm.
So yeah, I think the one negative about JJ McCarthy for them is they're more ready to go now than we are.
Yeah,
And JJ has to sit a little bit. And I don't know. It'd be interesting to know if they really thought Kirk Cousins was going to come back to them, or if they didn't want him all along. It seemed like they were complaining pretty quickly after Atlanta signed him that there was some tampering going on. So that made me believe like they didn't see that coming, but who knows?
Yeah.
But I
I
agree.
feel like they probably knew because I mean, they would have just gotten
You
a
would
deal
think,
done before he even hit the market.
yeah, I think they knew like a week out, but I think they maybe were so far down the Atlanta was already down the road far enough where you're like, what the heck? I thought,
Yeah.
you know. So I mean, it wasn't a surprise that day, but maybe it was a surprise a week or two before that. That
Hmm.
oh shoot, we're not going to have. He's not coming back. So, but Kevin O'Connell, again, like he's not going to. I don't see him risking it on like a wild, riskier type of quarterback. He wants a guy that's going to implement the system and be able to like deliver that. JD McCarthy is a perfect fit for that.
Yep. I
So,
agree. I agree. I think that makes sense. And here's what's interesting about this before you obviously have the Broncos pick. If it actually felt like this to where like Roma Dunze or Brock Bowers,
yeah,
were available,
yeah,
then I think 12 now becomes a very hot pick. Like I
it
think that
could.
there are legitimate guys like teams, upper teens, low 20s that are
Yeah.
like, I want Brock Bowers or I want Roma Dunze.
Oh, the
Um,
Buffalo Bills are blowing your phone up for Roma Dunze.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't they? Right? They could give you
Yeah.
you can get
Oh,
the house, but it's also like shit. For us to go from 12 to 28 would take a haul for them. So,
right.
I mean, you could look all everywhere up and down here, and we could say, man, I mean, the Bengals would like Brock Bowers, or the Bengals might like Roma Dunze if they feel like they're going to lose T Higgins, or you know, um, Seattle might be looking at one of these guys, but that's not
Hmm.
too much of a difference. But I mean, even if let's say Quinyon Mitchell or one of these cornerbacks for the Eagles. So there's a lot of that. This would be one of those scenarios where I think the Broncos pick now becomes very popular.
Right.
And you have to entertain those offers. You have to, especially if you're just going back a few picks, right?
So let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say this whole time, and I think this is very possible. This whole time, Sean Payton is like Bo Nix is the dude that can run my system the best.
Mm-hmm.
He's you know similar like processing and everything to like a Drew Brees style. I can just go back into the exact same thing that I was most successful with, and I don't even have to think twice. I don't have to work like come up with new things to suit him. He suits me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but you are like you said, you have Roma Dunze and Brock Bowers, and people are calling you. Do you trade down even a little bit and not show that faith that makes it look like you're just settling on Bo Nix? Can you like tell his agent, no, 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 we did love you that much, but we were willing to risk losing you because we were getting all these calls and we thought you'd be there. Like that's where it gets tricky, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Yeah.
I could see a world where he's just like, I think we can get Bo Nix at 12 or JJ McCarthy. And if the board felt like this, when you get to 10 and the Jets, the pick is in, and no matter who the Jets aren't picking a quarterback most likely. So when you see that the pick is in and JJ and Bo Nix is still on the board, you're getting one of them, or you have the ability to get one of them. So a part of me is like, of course I would love more picks. Of course I would love to be able to trade back and still get the person you really want. Of course. But it just sends that message that you're settling and that you
Yeah.
just didn't love the player that much. You were willing. It's like, you know, it's like if your wife was like, if you told her the story, like, I know I wanted, I was going to meet you the next day or whatever. Like, we're going to go on a date, our first date on a Saturday night, but I did go out on a Friday night just in case
Yeah.
because you know what I
Exactly.
mean. It's
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
that's just not
Exactly.
gonna work. That's not gonna
Yeah.
fly.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, I don't know how much players necessarily care. Like, well, maybe. I mean, maybe
Seems
not.
like
I just think it really depends because I don't know how many scenarios it's actually happened where a team was so confident that they were going to still get the player they were targeting that they just moved back and took him. You know, and
Yeah.
I specifically at quarterback, I know it happens all the time at like tackle or the different skill positions because like somebody can have a very good fit with what you do. So you're like, I have no doubt he's going to be there if I trade back. But with quarterback, it's like, man, I don't know. I mean, in those situations, I would, if it was me, you're listening to the calls, you're seeing how far you move back, you're seeing what you're getting offered. If you're getting blown up, if you're getting blown away, like let's say, I don't know, Indianapolis calls you and says, "Hey man,
Yeah.
we'll give you 15 for 12, we'll give you our second this year and a fourth." Right?
That'd be nice.
Then
Yeah.
you're like, "All right, cool." Especially if you were like, "Okay, I don't think the Raiders are getting a quarterback. I think the Seahawks are high on Penix," and you're like confident in that,
Yeah.
then of course you do it. Or it could be one of
Well,
those things where like you trade back a lot to get a haul, but then you trade back up and to use less of the haul to show that.
here's where I would sit with it. If you don't love if you don't love Michael Penix or a Rattler or Michael Pratt or somebody else, can you risk like the Raiders sitting there the next pick and maybe taking Bo Nix? And Tom Telesco is now the GM for the Raiders, and he drafted Justin Herbert from Oregon for the Chargers. So it's not like he's not used to drafting, Oregon quarterbacks that have worked out for him. That's probably why he has that job now for the Raiders, because he's made that pick. So you're really playing like, if you love maybe you love Michael Penix. I personally don't think Michael Penix fits what Sean Payton wants to do as well. So even though I would love to get a haul, I would love to do all that stuff, I wouldn't risk it. Like you said, I would be more apt to going up a couple spots to being like, no, we love you and you're the dude, you're our guy, than I would be to being like, yeah, we settled for you. You're going to come out no matter what. Hey, all the guys we wanted were all there. This was the best draft of all time. And, that's how they always, every draft is the same way. But people will always be like, oh, you could have got J.G. McCarthy if you would have went to 10. What the heck? Or you could have done this, but you wait, And so it's hard to beat like the narrative. Like the Drew Lock thing, when we drafted him, everyone's like, take him in the first. And then we didn't. We traded back. And then we didn't love him. Like it shows that.
Of course not. Yeah. No, absolutely we didn't love him. Because if you loved him, you wouldn't have passed over him 3 times.
Right.
Literally 3 times. They had 10, they moved back to 20, then they traded, they ended up taking Fant, right? And they traded back again in the second round, and then they had 2 back-to-back picks. And then they took what's his name? Reisner.
It was their original pick was Reisner, but they didn't pick Locke first. They waited to trade the next pick. Yeah. So they had 10, didn't take him there, went to 20, didn't take him there. Then their next pick at the second round didn't take him there, and then they traded him and took him.
Yeah.
And what was crazy about that was Elway was like calling the shots, and he was like, clearly he must have liked Drew Lock to trade up in the second round to get him, like somewhat, but he was also like hands off when it came to like telling the coaches what to do. So it was like, maybe we should have communicated with Vic Fangio before that or whatever. Like, hey, I'm going to take Drew Lock, but because Fangio was not a Drew Lock fan at all.
That whole scenario was so clearly just like, I wouldn't say it's incompetence, but it was so much like, it was so obvious that there was not head coach and GM synergy, like as obvious as it gets, because it's almost like Vic Fangio was just pounding the table for like Reisner. He probably didn't even want Noah Fant. And then Elway was like, yeah, let's get, do Noah Fant. And then so to compromise, Elway was like, all right, I'll take Reisner. I'll make a trade to go up and get him. None of it made sense. None of it made sense.
And as Bronco fans, it felt like we would have rather just wanted Locke to just go out and either fail or succeed, and then we would have been fine with it. We just wanted to see it one way or the other. We just wanted to see it.
Yeah,
but
it would have happened if you took him at 10.
Yeah, and then if you go with Teddy Bridgewater and all these people that like that's the bridge. Like his name, the word bridge is in his name.
I know.
like, like sometimes like the world's telling you something. Like this dude is not the guy for like long term.
Yeah.
And I get that like, oh, he's knows the offense. I think the hardest thing for Fangio was Drew Lock just had too much like gunslinger in him, and he just would just go rogue too much.
Yeah.
And I just don't think the personalities fit at all. He'd rather have a quiet guy. Like I could see Fangio like in Bo Nix, but I don't see Fangio like in a guy who's rapping on the sidelines and just just going rogue sometimes. So I think that was the biggest thing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And just changing the offensive coordinators. We could do a whole up on that, man. That whole situation was wild. So, as we wrap it up, I know it's been well over the hour now, and obviously we'll continue this. We'll run this back in a couple days. Who are you ultimately taking? If they're staying at 12, I think I probably know, and I think I would agree. But who would you take here? If it felt exactly like this.
If it's me, I mean, there's only this is my dude, 100%. It's Byron Murphy. No, I'm just kidding. It's Bo Nix. No,
I would agree.
To me, he just fits so well. Like even all the little comments where like Sean Payton is like, well, we don't want to take we can't take sacks. Okay, that who took the least amount of sacks? It was him and Michael Penix. So there's that. It's like the hallmarks, again, the things that ring in my ears are Drew Brees saying the hallmarks of a Sean Payton offense are timing and tempo and all that stuff. He's the number one quarterback in this whole class above anybody at what Sean Payton really wants. The reason why Russell Wilson is a Steeler right now and we're paying $80-some million to not have him on our team is because he didn't run Sean Payton's offense. He
1,000%.
wouldn't run the plays. It's like,
I agree.
That's it. So if you're willing to pay $85 million for a guy to play against you because he's not doing something, you're going to get somebody who's going to do that. And that to me is Bo Nix.
I agree. No, I love him. I mean, I've been high on him. He's honestly one of my top choices. He just makes so much sense for Sean Payton. And the whole narrative of like, oh, well, he's kind of a lower ceiling guy. I don't get it. Like some people say he's got like a little bit of like Derek Carr in him or whatever, but like, okay, first of all, Derek Carr for many, many years was actually very good and super underrated. But like you have to look at it. You have to look at it like if you're looking long term and you're looking, okay, if somebody said in the next 10 years the Broncos are gonna have 3 head coaches, I'd say, okay, stay away. Right?
Right.
Because then I understand where the ceiling thing comes from. But if you're talking about a long-term fix, somebody like Sean Payton can groom for the next 5-6 years, and then see after that, he absolutely makes the most sense. He's a solid, and I love the fact that he played a lot of football in college. He faced some adversity in college. He comes from a football family. His dad's a coach. He's a sharp dude. I usually don't like older prospects, but he's extremely mature. I mean, he just makes a lot of sense. He makes a ton of sense.
To me,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, to me, it's just like he fits every criteria. To me, it's like he's the biggest knock he has no like major flaws. Like everything is a B plus or better, and the biggest knock is he doesn't have the arm talent that Drake May or Caleb Williams or something like they might have. But it's like he has a little bit of footwork that he needs to clean up, and I think with that his arm strength will improve. But he's had 5 different offensive coordinators throughout college, but yet every single year he kept getting better and better and better. His completion percentage went up every single year.
Every year.
Even with all that fluctuation, even with Auburn not having anybody for the second and third years, like all the stuff that he had to go through. And I personally love the fact that he did go through all that stuff. And he played in the biggest of games. He beat Justin Herbert. He beat Caleb Williams. He beat all these people. He beat Drake May. He's been there, done that. And he's a guy that seems obsessed about football. If you ever shout out to another. They did X's and O's with Greg Cosell and Peter Farrar, and if you just listen to him talk football with those guys are they're so like, oh my gosh, this guy is like, they called him a supercomputer, his brain after that, because
Well,
this dude is just like obsessed with football. And it's like, to me, that's Sean Payton. They could just sit back, and Sean Payton's the alpha in the room. Like, let's just be honest.
mhm.
Like, people who like Rattler and all this stuff, it's just like, I personally don't see like a personality of Rattler fitting well with Sean Payton. I think, I like him. You want your quarterback to have confidence and all that kind of stuff, but just he seems like there could be some clashing of like, whatever. Now, Bo Nix is a quiet, like humble kind of guy who also is like ultra competitive. He's been working out with Drake May this whole offseason. And he said when they go do just their normal like jump, like broad jumps and all that stuff, they're like competing on every little thing. Both of those guys are like, oh, I can beat you at this. I'm going to beat you at this. And so to me, it's just like, I hate the fact that people are like, oh, well, his ceiling's lower. It's like, how can you say that about anybody? Like, especially from the quarterback position, when the quarterback position is so dependent on your brain, how do you know where somebody's ceiling is? I just
Yeah.
don't like that argument.
No, no doubt, man. And my thing, Sean Payton's never really had a history of liking playing rookies a lot early, obviously, but this is one of those rookies that, given all that, he would absolutely feel comfortable. And why wouldn't he love to coach a kid that's smart, that's mature, and that's also the son of a coach? Like, there's a lot of things he'd understand
Yeah.
about how to deal with Sean Payton, attentiveness, and all that. So I love it, man. We'll definitely
He can be
continue this
coached hard.
discussion. Was
Yep.
that? Yeah,
He
he
can be
will.
coached hard.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, and he's gone through so many different coaches, so no doubt. But yeah. So, anyways, I super enjoyed this, Jeremy. Thank you so
Me
much
too.
for
Yeah.
this, man. This was awesome. We'll definitely do this again. No doubt
Yep.
about it. I
Yep.
think it was great. And like I said, if we did this, there would be we could go till midnight. I know I could, but
I could
unfortunately,
too.
gotta jump and go take care of some stuff. But I appreciate you, man. Hope you guys all enjoyed tuning in. Jeremy, do you have a YouTube channel or anything?
I
Anything you
don't.
want
I
to
mean,
promote?
I have a YouTube channel. I don't do sports on it, but Jeremy Sean. I have like three YouTube channels technically because I put some stuff I've edited and stuff. But I think Jeremy Sean A. I think is my main channel. So yeah.
Cool. Well, show my man Jeremy some love on if you have Twitter. Are you on Twitter? Or
Yeah, Jeremy. I think it's just my full name, Jeremy Auten on Twitter. And yeah, I'm not on Facebook, but
I'll make sure I get you followed on Twitter too, man, because I
yeah,
drop a lot of stuff on there. But awesome, yeah, appreciate it, guys, and hopefully you guys enjoy some of the content. Please like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. I love the comments. Obviously, this is how I got connected with Jeremy, man, and hopefully we'll connect and make this a great community as we keep going. So I
so
appreciate it, Jeremy. Have a great rest of your night, and peace out, everybody.